So I do a lot of mixing with Capital CMG. This is one of the later ones with Danny Gokey and Hope Darst, and I thought I'd share a little bit of the inside of the session. Here's a bit of the original before.
Your glory's in this room. How could I not be?
And here's the mix.
Oh, I can't help but worship you.
Back to that before.
At the mention of your name,
and back to the
my
mix.
heart erupts with praise.
So obviously the mix has a lot more depth, but at the core, Danny's vocals sound great, Hope's vocals sound great. Yes, I do a little bit of vocal tuning, but it's typically just touch-ups because these people are pros and they sound awesome. So everything is there. It's my job to bring more dynamic to it. And obviously there's so much that I could talk about, like, you know, the way that I sampled the drums, and the way I handled the drum bus, and the way that I handled all the things within the track. In this short time, we could talk a little bit about the master bus, which made a huge difference. Here it is with the master bus on. And I'm going to turn it off, all but limiting here. Pretty big difference even in control. So back on. I mean, talk about a huge difference. So I do some really gentle bus compression with the SSL, followed by a little bit of control on the Pro Q3. I do some very low-end stuff. Under 26, you probably can't hear it, but for me, I wasn't hearing it. I didn't need it, gumming up the master bus at the end. This plugin is technically a limiter, but I like the vibe that it gives. I'm actually not limiting on it at all. Maybe like, 0.1, 0.2, but it's very light. It's more about the vibe. I've got the God particle, which is, yes, it's a ubiquitous plugin. It does a kind of thing, but it really does make a difference to things in the right song. Sometimes I don't use it, sometimes I do, but I would say 60% of the time it's on the master bus. I also followed that up with a little bit heavier compression. And when I say heavy, it's hitting like -2. It's from the virtual... I think it's the virtual mix rack or virtual bus, something like that. I just use this set of plugins from Slate all the time. Soothe did a lot for me here in controlling the 1K and a little bit of the kick. Sometimes that bass range, you've done controlling, you've done compression, but there's still something cutting through. So this makes a big difference for me, and it's kind of getting rid of the honky stuff that's coming through the whole track. And this is where a little bit of, I wouldn't call it secret sauce, but it's something for me that I do a lot, and it has made a huge difference. Well, when you're going up against a limiter, low end is usually a big part of the problem. So I solo the low end. And this one, it's got 100 and below, which is actually a little bit on the high side. But I'm controlling that with a dynamic compressor and nothing on that top end, just here. So that way, when it's getting to the limiter, it's controlling those moments as they grow. And, if they're not hitting that hard, then you're not getting low-end attenuation. You can still get a lot of depth out of the bloom of that low end. And, I've got a very gentle EQ. Do I really have much going on here? No, I'm only pushing like 3 at 26K. It's not really perceivable. It's more felt. And I felt like I needed it. And then this guy for me, gold clip, let's see how much we're hitting here. So it looks like I'm hitting around -2.4, and that gives me a little bit more of a brick wall as I move into my limiter. And on the limiter, we're still not going that hard because I'm hitting -8 on this for the LUFS. When I'm actually mastering or getting something to mastering level, it's more like a -5, -6, -5, maybe -4, depending on the style of music. But this one did not call for that. It's a live video. It felt great where it was, and it still had plenty of loudness. But yeah, there's a lot to share out of these things, and I mix so much for these guys, and I'd like to start sharing more of it. I've always loved working with Worship together, and I'm so happy with the way this one turned out. You should go check it out on YouTube.